is like myself having to suffer through bad content so that they don't have to. But Rings of Power Season 2 is one of the rare cases where I actually began to feel it. To put this into some kind of perspective, I once climbed the highest mountain in the UK on a boiling hot day, with an absolutely stinking hangover every step of the way. And that experience was less of a slog than getting through 3 episodes of this show in time. For open bar, it was, to put it bluntly, one of the most miserable and depressingly tedious media experiences of my entire career. That somehow found new and creative ways to defecate onto Tolkien's legacy. And proved, once again, that modern culture is an absolute blight on humanity. From the cringing juicing, dialogue straining for grandiose pomposity and peppered with so many tortured metaphors, that the writer should be arrested for crimes against literature, to the idiotic character choices and a ridiculously convoluted plot held together by so many convenient season shortcuts that it makes like Christopher Nolan, to the overall performances by a cast of effeminate Gen Z pussies that takes almost every diversity box except acting ability, to the ham-fisted direction and oversaturated cinematography. That's so dark. You literally can't see what the fuck is even going on half the time. In all adds up to $1 billion slab of arson that shames the legacy of Lord of the Rings and makes a complete mockery out of everything that Tolkien stood for. Put another way, the Rings of Power Season 2 fucking sucks. Now I'm gonna do my best to summarize whatever passed as for a plot here, but in the interests of my own sanity, I'm gonna speed run this shit because the last time I'll have to spend talking about Rings of Power, the better. Anyway, allow me to give you the meat and give it to your raw. This show gets off to the worst possible start by devoting a good 20 minutes to an extended flashback sequence, explaining how Sauron got betrayed by his own lieutenant and eventually got reborn as Halbrand before running into Galadriel. Not a great plan. Why are you by telling his stuff that we already know? Do you guys even understand what storytelling is, or is this whole thing just an amusing little side project for a year? Also, I love the idea that Sauron, a godlike being of unimaginable power and influence, commanding armies number, bringing the hundreds of thousands by the sheer force of his will, is reduced to this dork in a shitty wig, trying to argue with a couple of dozen orcs in a cave somewhere. For sure, the cost of $1 billion rings. The power somehow manages to make everything that should be grounded, epic feel small and cheap. I mean, do you really think an entity as powerful as Sauron would need to argue his case to get orcs to follow him? Anyway, they decide that they don't like him anymore, so they stab him to death. But then his blood turns into a flumpy black goo monster that eventually climbs out of the mountain and rolls down the side like a tart until it gets stuck in the wheels of someone's wagon before he eats them. This is real, this is stuff which actually happens in this show. Honestly, I could probably spend an hour breaking down this opening scene alone because it perfectly encapsulates how the writers completely misunderstand almost every aspect of what Siren is. But let's just keep moving for God's sake. So eventually we get back to the present day, where Sauron allows himself to get captured in Mordor and brought before Adar, who for some reason doesn't recognize him or sense his power, and manages to convince the guy to release him by using the following gambits: Sauron is alive again. And I know you want him dead, even though I totally shouldn't know that because you betrayed him hundreds of years before I should have been born. But don't think about that too much, and I don't actually know where he is or what he looks like now. But the important thing is that he's totally not me, and if you let me go, then I can go to the elves and maybe find out where he is and then report back to you so that you can march your not particularly strong armies halfway across Middle-earth to the most heavily defended stronghold in the entire world and possibly take him out. And I'll totally appear and never come back. Trust me, bro. And the amazing thing is it actually works. So he teleports over to kill a Brimbar and says that it's raining time, buddy. And even though Killer Brimbar has been specifically warned never to deal with him again, transforms into a fire demon angel thing, and he's like, don't worry man, I've been sent from heaven to help you out. Trust me, bro. It's like, sure. Okay. I'm convinced. Meanwhile, Elrond steals the 3 elven rings that have already been made and decides to destroy them, because they might be influenced by Sauron, but fucking Doorboy here wants them anyway because he already wears more finger jewelry than your average gypsy taxi driver. So Outrun throws himself off a waterfall and magically survives so that the rest of the plot can happen. But then they catch him anyway and use the rings to bring the elf trees back to life or something. Then there's Gandalf and the not hobbits who are wandering through the fucking desert looking for stars or something. None of them seem to know or care why they're in this show anyway. And frankly, neither do I, but it kind of laugh when we get introduced to this doofus played by Kieran Hines. Literally, this was your one chance to introduce a racially diverse character and have it actually make sense in universe. And you chose possibly the whitest actor in the entire fucking industry to play him. What is wrong with your brains? Like, did they just not operate like regular brains or what also? It's nice to see the real grim, shady make a comeback because those guys totally weren't a laugh in stock from the first season. Oh yeah. And he's Zielder is alive again because wow, it turns out the death of a major character that we know can't die yet, wasn't the best way of sustaining dramatic tension. Neither was bringing back Don Lemon last. He was a pointless character even in season 1 and hasn't changed much here. It did make me laugh though, when they had to explain away the death of Bronwyn even though she was totally alive and well at the end of season 1. Yeah, those are Carols. Just take a while to kill you, I guess.